Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Translation to chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, please. So we chanted the Sanskrit to these verses the other day. And now read the English, and if one continuously goes through the various chapters of the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and recites them on a regular basis, one's mind will become fascinated. That is, the word fascinated means to be fastened to something. And there are many things the mind can become fastened to. It's its propensity to fasten itself to other things. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Jayato Vishayam Pumsang Sangasteshu Pajayate. Saanga means that one makes a connection or fastens. So when the mind thinks about the objects of the senses in the material world and contemplates them, then it fastens itself. In fact, the sense objects are already fastened to the mind. Even as we're born in this world, the Hamsa Avatar explains this in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that the sense objects are embedded in the mind, and the mind is embedded in the sense objects. And therefore, we already have a fascination with the material world, but it's not satisfying. So the object of this sadhana, of hearing and chanting, is to fasten the mind to the Shastra. So if you can fasten your mind to the Srimad Bhagavatam, then your mind becomes liberated. Tada rajas tamobhava kama loba dayaschaye cheta iter anavidham stitam sattve prasidati. This is the cheta iter anavidham stitam sattve prasidati. The mind will gradually be transformed from a materialistic entity into one that's situated in Shuddha Sattva. And when one's mind is situated in Shuddha Sattva, then one will naturally be able to perceive Krishna. He's already there, everywhere, but I can't see him because I'm covered over. So this exercise of repeating the Shastra and becoming attached to it and having one's mind form a bond with this transcendental sound liberates one from the material world. Shuddha Sattva. Okay, translations to chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is a regular daily practice that anyone who's serious in spiritual life should adhere to. That is, recite at least one chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day before the sun goes down. And if you can do that every single day, then you will naturally advance in the process of devotional service. And if you don't, you'll waste a great opportunity. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, altogether, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Who is the Lord of sacrifice? And how does he live in the body, O Madhusudan? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? The Supreme Personality of God had said the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruit of activities. O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adidaiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the Supersoul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adiyagya, the Lord of Sacrifice. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O Sonakunti, that state he will attain without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows, and by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are great sages in the renounced order, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pratha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state, and thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are hopelessly annihilated. Yet there is another unmanifest nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme, it is never annihilated. When all this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. That which the Vedantas describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. O best of the Paratas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery God, in the light, at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back. According to Vedic opinion, there are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. Although the devotees know these 2 paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, by performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme and eternal abode. You find Rukmini's, the chapter where Rukmini offers prayers? The whole chapter? Did any of the verses that we just read stick to your mind, or your mind stick to them? Did you become attached to any of the verses? Did you take shelter of any of them? Did you think, oh, this verse is speaking directly to me? If so, which one was it? Yes? Here comes the mic.
So the first word, it says there are two paths, light and darkness, but devotees are never bewildered. Because it's very difficult practically to think so many things. So just take the shelter and be assured that you are safe.
Very nice. Why did you think of that verse? What struck you about it?
Because our life is complicated, at least in IT. So I don't feel that so many rituals, so many things is difficult. Krishna consciousness is simple and sublime. That's why it is so easily we can accept it and but get the highest benefit at the same time. I think that is why I like it.
Nice points. Very nice. Anybody else have a verse that stuck? Bali Mardan.
Kunda sada tadbhava bhavita. This is a beautiful verse. Whoever remembers whatever at the time of quitting his body, he attains to that state.
Yeah, so why did you remember that verse? Why did that stick to your mind?
Yeah, the reason is we are always conscious and we
I'm
must...
not asking about we, I'm asking about why it stuck to you.
Yeah, it stuck to me because when I'm thinking of something else, then I remember in case if I quit my body, then I will attain. So I bring back to some Krishna consciousness activity. So that gives me an impetus to remember.
So if I understand you correctly, as you're moving about the world, you remember this verse because you become aware of the fact that you could die at any minute.
Any minute.
And you want to be very deliberate about what you're thinking about when you die. Is that correct?
That's true.
Okay. It's very practical, good points. Yes?
Hare Krishna. But I think last Saturday someone asked you this question about in this life going back home, back to Godhead, and then you in the answer you mentioned the words from this chapter, Nate Sriti Partha Jana.
They asked in one life, can we go back to God?
In one life he can go back.
Said in one life you will.
So you quoted the verse from this chapter, Nate Sriti Partha Janan Yogi Muhyati Kashchana Tasmat Sarvesh. So that a Krishna conscious person, he doesn't depend on the ordinary activities or like day, night or anything. He's above all. So that verse always and it stuck to my mind.
It depends on Krishna, and also, as I was listening to a lecture of Prabhupada this morning, and he was saying that the devotee depends on the order of the spiritual master, and that he's not even concerned with liberation. He's concerned with following the order of the spiritual master, and whatever comes of that, na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam ja va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhakti rahaitu ki tvai. Lord Chaitanya says that life after life, I just go on performing service. But it's up to Krishna whatever he does with me. And the devotee is satisfied whatever situation Krishna puts him in, because he's only concerned with going on with his service. Narayana parak sarve na kutaschana bibhyati swarga pavarga narakeshu api tulyartha darshana. Tulyartha darshana means it's equal whether to the devotee, whether he's in Naraka or whether he's in Swarga, hell or heaven. Either way, as long as I'm connected with Krishna, then fine, I go on. He's not so concerned with this is where I want to go. But because he's connected to service, Vishvam Purnam Sukhayate, Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur says, even as he's in the material world, he sees this as the abode of joy. because he sees everything as connected to Krishna, because he's engaging everything in Krishna's service. Shraddha? Yes, Shraddha, you were saying?
Manoj, I like verse number 9, where there's a very nice and a beautiful description of how we should meditate on the Lord.
Oh.
And the Kavin Puranam.
Which particular way of meditating on him caught your attention?
I like the fact that in the end it says Aditya Varnam.
Aditya Varnam.
Aditya Varnam is like golden in color, and that also reminds of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Oh, very nice. Excellent. So you can see how by reading these verses and contemplating them and reading the purports to them, going deeply within him, you have an inner life in Krishna consciousness. So the Shastras, the way that we transfer, Prabhupada writes this in his introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, the way that we transfer our interests and our attention from the material world to the spiritual world. And if you want to transfer your attention to the material world, then there's plenty of ways to do that. There's lots of topics. As mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shotra Vyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrashaha. This means Nrinam in human society, Santi Sahasrashaha means there's thousands and millions of topics in the material world that you can discuss. Doesn't mean that you should, but people do it anyway. And these don't pertain to the absolute truth. Therefore, they're simply a distraction, and they attach our mind to material things. And when that happens, then I become full of anxiety. Yes?
So, in relation to what Prabhu said in the beginning about, it's mentioned in this chapter, like, time of death, like if you die during the Uttarayan, and when the sun is moving in the north, or during the light, then your death is glorious, you probably get born in a good. So when I went to India this time, so amongst my relatives, a relative had passed away, and I saw many other relatives discussing that she died in that right time where the sun was in that northern part of the orbit, and in the I think waxing moon that fortnight. So they don't know the other details, like what else Krishna had said, but they kept on saying, in Bhagavad Gita it is said that she died a very, her death is very auspicious, so she'll get a good birth. But they are not familiar with anything else, that who is saying Krishna, they're not discussing that, the other paths. While I was wondering, how it's said that, in the same chapter, like from Brahma's planet down to all the planets, it's again and again it's created, annihilated, and there is another abode, above all this, the Krishna's abode, which is never annihilated. So I was just thinking that I wish they knew all these details also, other than only that part of the whole Bhagavad Gita, that the death is glorious when. So just so that's.
What city are they in?
Calcutta.
So then you have to go to Calcutta and hold open classes in Victoria. That's why it's so important and people have fragmentary knowledge of this and that. And especially Bhagavad Gita, in India people easily take it for granted. They say, I know Gita. And then they know one verse, even actually half a verse, and the half the verse they know they misinterpret. And this is the plight of India. But if that's why it's so important to teach Bhagavad Gita. Vaitacharya had open class every day, and he taught the Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is the greatest need in human society. And when you do that and people get complete knowledge, then they take to devotional service. And you see this all over the world. If you hold open class in your home, or you go to a school or wherever you go, and you hold open class on Bhagavad Gita as it is, and people listen, then naturally the conclusion they come to is to dedicate their lives to Krishna, and then they become happy. So this is, the Krishna consciousness movement is a very simple thing. It means to teach Bhagavad Gita as it is to people everywhere. Most people, it takes them a while to be able to appreciate Srimad Bhagavatam, but right away they can appreciate Bhagavad Gita.
Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, hey, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman.